William Lyon Mackenzie King served as Canada's Prime Minister longer than anyone else, 21 years in total, and he had quite a large impact on our history, both in good ways and not so good ways. He was a man who never married and never had children. Not that he didn't try and find a wife that could join him in his political rise, but there was only one woman who was greater than all others in his eyes. It was his mother. Today, we're looking at William Lyon Mackenzie King and his relationship with his mother, Isabel. William Lyon Mackenzie King was born on December 17, 1874 in Berlin, Ontario, now Kitchener. He was the third child and eldest surviving son of John King and Isabel Grace Mackenzie. Isabel was the youngest daughter of William Lyon Mackenzie, the leader of the 1837 Upper Canada Rebellion, who later became the first mayor of Toronto. The King family had 4 children who lived past infancy. Isabel Christina Grace, known as Bella, born in 1873, William Lyon Mackenzie King in 1874, Janet Lindsay, known as Jenny, born in 1876, and Dougal McDougall, known as Max, born in 1881. 2 earlier babies had died in infancy. Isabel Grace Mackenzie suffered from poor health all her adult life. Doctors at the time diagnosed migraines and nervous exhaustion. Today it likely would be called chronic fatigue syndrome or a similar condition. She spent weeks and sometimes months at a time in bed or on a sofa, unable to do housework or go out. And because of this, young William spent a great deal of time with his mother. He read aloud to her from books and newspapers, brought her meals, and kept her company. This started when he was a small boy and continued well into adulthood. Isabella told many stories to her children of her father, William Lyon Mackenzie. She described the rebellion, the burnings of the buildings in Montreal, her father's plight to the United States, and his years in exile. She kept his portrait on the wall and his old rebel flag in a drawer. She taught William that the Mackenzie family had a special mission to fight for the common people and responsible government, and William accepted this completely. From childhood, he saw himself as the one who would fulfill his grandfather's work. He always called his mother Mummy, or Dear Mummy, even in his letters written when he was Prime Minister and well into his 70s. He signed his letters, Your loving son, Willie, until the day she died. When he left home for university in Toronto in 1891, he chose to live at home and walk 2 hours each way to classes rather than board near campus, just so he could see his mother every single day. From 1896 to 1900, he studied at the University of Chicago and then Harvard. He wrote to his mother 2 to 3 times a week, sometimes daily, with long letters describing everything he did, everyone he met, and every lecture that he attended. Over 10,000 pages of these letters still exist. In 1900, at the age of 25, King was appointed Canada's first Deputy Minister of Labour. He immediately moved his parents from Toronto to Ottawa so he could live with them and support them. His father's law practice had essentially failed and the family had little to no money. John King often fell into depression because of money worries and failing eyesight. Isabel worried about money and her husband's moods. William became the main provider and the emotional center of the household. Now, William Lyon Mackenzie King received several marriage proposals from women during his 20s and 30s. He turned them all down. He wrote in his diary that he could never marry because his first duty was to his mother and no wife could accept living with her. In 1908, his father had a stroke. A year later, William Lyon Mackenzie King, lost in the federal election, was out of work for a short time. But he did take a higher-paying job with the Rockefeller Foundation in New York in 1914, but he still paid for the family home in Ottawa and visited as often as he could. Isabel's health declined sharply after 1914. She had a series of small strokes that left her partially paralyzed and unable to speak clearly. King spent every evening with her when he was in Ottawa. He read to her, fed her, and brushed her hair. In the summer of 1916, while King was working in Colorado Springs for the Rockefellers, he received a telegram that his mother had suffered a massive stroke and was not expected to live. He took the next train home and she lingered unconscious for 5 months. King almost never left her bedside. He slept in a chair beside the bed and held her hand for hours every day. Isabel Grace Mackenzie King died on December 19, 1916. 2 days after William's 42nd birthday. King wrote in his diary that day, "My beloved mother has gone from me. My life is ended. She was everything to me." For years afterwards, he kept her bedroom exactly as it had been on the day she died. Her clothes stayed in the closet, her hairbrush on the dresser. Starting in 1917, he began visiting spiritualist mediums in Canada, the United States, and Britain. He held hundreds of seances over the next 33 years trying to contact his mother. Many mediums told him his mother was present and sending love and advice, and he believed them and wrote down every word. He also recorded hundreds of dreams in which his mother appeared to him. He believed these were real visits from her spirit. When he was elected leader of the Liberal Party in 1919 and became Prime Minister in 1921, he said he felt his mother's hand guiding him. On the night he won the 1921 election, he wrote that his mother had been in the room with him. He kept a large photograph of his mother on his desk in the Prime Minister's office for all his years in office, 1921 to 1926, 1926 to 1930, and 1935 to 1948. Cabinet ministers reported that he sometimes turned to the photo and spoke to it quietly before making major decisions. In his home, Laurier House, the former home of Sir Wilfrid Laurier, he moved many of his mother's things and set up a special room called Mother's Room with her furniture and belongings. In the 1930s, he bought ruins of his grandfather's old house on Bond Street in Toronto and had them moved stone by stone to Kingsmere Estate in Gatineau Hills. He built artificial ruins and gardens and called the whole place a memorial to his mother and grandfather. Every year, on his mother's birthday, he held a private ceremony with flowers and prayers. Every year, on the anniversary of her death, he spent the day alone in reflection. During the Second World War, when he was making decisions about conscription, the Battle of Britain, and Canada's war effort, he still wrote in his diary about asking his mother's spirit for guidance. His diary, which totals more than 7 million words, mentions his mother on thousands of pages, right up to his death in 1950. In the early diary entries, when he was a student at the University of Toronto, he recorded every visit home to see his mother, every book he read to her, and every time she felt well enough to sit up. He noted the exact time he arrived at the house and the exact time he left the room. When he moved to Chicago in 1896, the diary shows he mailed a letter to his mother almost every single day. If the mail was late, he worried in the diary that she would be anxious. He kept carbon copies of many letters so he could reread what he had told her. At Harvard, he did the same. He numbered his letters so she would know if one went missing. Letter 147 from Cambridge in 1899 is 12 pages long and describes a snowfall, a lecture on political economy, and what he ate for supper, all because he knew she liked to picture his daily life. From 1900 to 1908, he was almost never away overnight. The diary shows he went to her room every morning before work and every evening after work. He read the time he spent with her in minutes. In 1906, he met a woman named Marjorie Herridge, who wanted to marry him. He wrote 20 pages in the diary explaining why he could not accept. The main reason was that his mother needed him full-time and always would. In 1918, he bought a crystal ball because a medium told him it would help him see his mother more clearly. The diary describes many sessions staring into this ball, waiting for her face to appear. In 1924, while he was Prime Minister, he traveled to London for an imperial conference. He took a trusted medium with him on the ship and held seances in his cabin almost every night to ask his mother's advice about talking to British leaders. In 1933, he commissioned a large oil painting of his mother from the photograph taken when she was young. He hung it in the dining room at Laurier House and always sat where he could see it while he was eating. William Lyon Mackenzie King collected every letter his mother had ever written to him, even short notes about shopping. He had them bound into volumes and labeled Letters from Mother, 1891 to 1916, and so on. During the 1935 election campaign, he carried small photographs of her in his jacket pocket and touched them before every speech. In 1938, he had a serious heart attack, and while recovering at Kingsmere, he told his doctor that his mother had appeared at the foot of his bed and told him he must live because Canada still needed him. In 1941, with the growing conscription crisis, he spent an entire night alone in his study asking his mother whether he should force conscription on Canada, especially Quebec. The next day, he wrote in his diary that she had said yes, it was necessary to win the war. He kept a locked box containing locks of his mother's hair, her wedding ring, and the last handkerchief she used, and he opened that box on the anniversary of her death every year. In 1948, he retired as Prime Minister, and he told the press that the happiest day of his life had been when he could devote himself entirely to his mother, and the second happiest was knowing he had done his duty as she would have wished. When he became ill in 1950, he asked to be taken to Kingsmere. He died in the bedroom that had been his mother's when she visited the estate. The last diary entry, July 18, 1950, says, "Soon I shall be with my dear mother again. All is well." His will directed that his body be cremated and the ashes buried beside his mother, father, brother, sisters in Mount Pleasant Cemetery, Toronto. He never married, he had no children. His emotional life revolved around his mother from the day he was born until the day he died. And that is the full story of William Lyon Mackenzie King and his lifelong relationship with his mother, Isabella Grace Mackenzie King.